Let's be honest. Nobody warns you about how brutal holidays and birthdays can feel after divorce. One minute you're watching fireworks and finally breathing free, and the next you're blindsided by grief or tangled in awkward family drama. In this episode, you'll hear real talk and real survival stories from Christian women who've walked through the landmines of that first year alone. If you've ever found yourself dreading the next holiday, you're not alone, and you do not have to fake fine. Join us for permission, laughter, and hope you didn't know you needed. Let's get through this together. This season is called The First 365 Days After Divorce, and today I have with me Diana, Marie, Michele, Grace, and Rochelle, who are all divorced Christian women. And we are going to be talking about handling holidays, birthdays, and other emotional landmines in today's episode. Freshly divorced Christian women are ambushed by hard emotional realities their entire first year. And they usually don't see these coming until they're in the fetal position in the Target parking lot. So we want to offer a practical and hope-filled episode around real strategies, mindsets, and survival tips to help you navigate these emotional landmines. So let's start with the first question. What was the first holiday or birthday that you faced after divorce? It doesn't have to be the very first. It could just be one of the first. And how did you approach it, and how did it actually go?
Well, my first holiday after I was divorced was the 4th of July. I had been divorced not even 2 months yet. And I was with family and extended family, and we're outside watching the fireworks. And I was looking up, just taking in every firework and just feeling so happy. Just this deep happiness that I don't know if I've ever felt in my life. And I was thinking, this is what freedom feels like. Just so happy. I wasn't having to manage anyone's emotions. I wasn't having to try to divert behavior so our family could hopefully have a good time, just free and happy. But that didn't last because the person next to me turned to me and told me of something that someone in my past had said to them. And I was just in a place where all the trauma was so fresh. I was just beginning to realize that not only was my ex toxic, but I had all these other people in my adult life who were toxic, and I didn't realize it. So when they told me what this person in my past, who was one of the other toxic people, had said, I responded with a negative comment, thinking I'm supporting this person talking to me, but instead it triggered them. And so things went from being this wonderfully new, happy
Oh,
time to being a really negative time between the two of us. And then the next day was just this horribly difficult conversation that we had. And I did not do well. I lost it emotionally. I was sobbing through the conversation. I didn't know what to say. The things that I did say weren't right, and it was absolutely devastating, really, for me. And you mentioned, Natalie, how we're just taken off guard so much of the time. I think, especially in that first year, when we are just out in the middle of a wilderness or out in the middle of an ocean on a boat with no oars, that feeling of not knowing what we're doing, where we're going, and just trying to like get up and dust ourselves off from the war zone that we just had walked through. And for a long time, I was so bothered that I didn't show up better on the 4th of July when that comment was made, or the next day when we were talking, that I wasn't strong enough just to, be able to handle it and know what to say. And then since realized that, you know what, that's okay. It's okay to give myself the space for the process of
yeah.
being raw and unhealed and not having to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you just started off by sharing that, because I think we all need to give ourselves permission, because it is messy. We're a mess. Our kids are a mess. The people around us don't get it. And they don't give us they don't give us often the space to be a mess. So we have to learn how to do that for ourselves. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, my first holiday was Thanksgiving, and very similar to Rochelle's experience. I was very happy not to have all the, you know, having to buffer and worry about, you know, certain behavior or whatever. But then, so, somebody was triggered and I did not react in the way that I had hoped. So the rest of the day, really, I was feeling bad. I should have done that better. What I learned in that process, though, and really helped was the beginning of me letting go of the idea of perfect holidays, which, I thought maybe they'll be a perfect once I have a divorce and, I'm not having to do it. That's not true. There are no perfect holidays.
Yeah.
But, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I did this Advent art journal with Conquer. I had told you that I was in Conquer. And those weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, doing that art Advent journal was so healing for me. I'd never done anything like that, but it slowed me down. It helped me feel some things that I needed to feel, which I was still learning how to feel. I mean, I was still coming into this. I mean, I was fresh from my divorce in November 2020. So this was the weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But yeah, no perfect holidays, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yep. I have a feeling, I'm just guessing, but that one thing that a theme that might flow out of this episode is the idea of letting go of expectations. Because we do
Yeah.
have expectations around holidays and birthdays, don't we? I mean, I don't know. I do. And I try not to, but I think there's just something internally inside of me that's like, thinks that it's supposed to be this magical out of this world experience. And of course it never is. I don't where does that come from? Does that come from our
Well, I was just
childhoods
thinking,
or
yeah, I'm sorry, Natalie.
yeah,
I was
no,
just
I'm
thinking the
asking.
same thing. Where did that come from? Because I don't think that I'm one that has unreasonable expectations, but that was very revealing that that Thanksgiving to, well, you do have expectations and it did not go how you thought that it was going to go. I guess I thought because I'm in control, like I'm really in control, but that this is my first holiday, I'm going to do this and it's going to go this way, and it just didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, such a good lesson though, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, it
yeah.
was.
Okay, so what practice, but we do have to prepare, right? We do have to get ready for our holidays for the sake of our kids and even for ourselves. So what kinds of things did any of you do to prepare for your first Thanksgiving, your first Christmas, your first Mother's Day? Why should mothers prepare for Mother's Day? But sometimes we do. Even your first anniversary date, if that was something that was really important to you.
Natalie, Diana here. I'll jump in, and because I want to jump in right now because you're right. This drop expectations. This is the theme of the entire thing. It is the way for sanity through the holidays, and yet it's also really hard. One of the questions coming up, this last Christmas was hard. I'm going to talk about that. But what I do in general, practically, I'm like everything I do, and all of you who've heard me, I've been on enough of these episodes now too. You know how I'm going to answer, right? What's the practical thing I do? It all is happening in my mind.
Yeah.
And I decide, I like the idea of deciding ahead of time. Like we can have boundaries and that's a decision we make ahead of time. But other areas of our life, it's like we're not setting a boundary, but we're still deciding ahead of time. So I decide ahead of time for each holiday. It's going to be okay. And I'm going to be okay no matter how it happens.
Yes.
If I feel lonely, that's okay. If I make plans that make me have a day where I don't feel lonely, that's okay. If I feel sad, if I don't feel sad, however it goes down, if people show up, if people don't show up, I'm deciding ahead of time, even if it's hard, all of that's okay. And it's noticing what's in your control and what's not in your control. I remember, I think it was the first Christmas Well, I had an exchange with, he was my soon to be ex at the time, but I had moved out. So I had an exchange. I thought he was just going to text me about Christmas plans, but he texted me about talking about something about selling the house. Oh, maybe it was after we were divorced and we still had to sell the house. That was it. On Christmas Eve. So I opened the text and I'm like, dang it. It's not about kids' plans. Now he put this idea about selling the house and wanting to talk about it this week in my brain. And I got really mad. And I said something sassy in the text. And then the next day, instead of my three adult kids and one teenage kid who were hanging out with him Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, instead of them all showing up at my house at noon, well, their dad made breakfast at noon. So they had
Now
all
I'm
went
mad.
without eating and opened their presents all morning. And they were 3 hours late. And I decided ahead of time this was going to be okay no matter how it unfolds. So if this is okay, now what? And so I thought, you know what? I've been wanting to watch White Christmas with Bing Crosby for a while. I'll watch that. Turned out I could watch it for free. I would have paid for it if it, like to download it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, usually we call it sticky buns in my family, but it's monkey bread. Usually, I'll make that with them when they come, but, they're not even going to want it probably. They're just going to have eaten this big thing. It was going to be like an afternoon snack. So I'm making sticky buns and I'm going to eat them myself. They can have leftovers when they come if they want. So it was hard. I did do a lot of self-coaching during that time, but I did enjoy watching White Christmas, and the sticky buns I made alone were delicious. And then eventually they came and we had a very nice time, but I didn't want to carry over my angst to them. And so I probably expended a lot of energy, that mental energy that day, but I, I wanted it to be okay. And I decided it would be. And so it was. Didn't mean it
Yeah.
was comfortable the whole time, but it was okay.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have had that experience had you been stewing the whole time before they came over. You
Yeah,
would have
it wouldn't have
still
been
been
okay.
miserable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I so many times I hear people will say, well, I can't handle that. I can't do this. And when everyone start noticing when inside your brain, you've got this voice that says, oh, I could never. Oh, I can't. If you got to nip that in the bud, because the fact is, in most of the time when we're saying that, we don't have a choice. Of course we can do that because we have to, because we don't have a choice. We have to do that. And so it's better to say, I can do this. It's going to be hard. I might feel sad, but I can do this. I can get through this. That's a better way of, yeah. Anyway, I just was thinking of that as you were talking. Okay, what
Yeah.
about Grace? Yeah.
Sorry, you guys took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that for me, I didn't really consciously plan the holidays, but I think putting in the work prior to the holidays for me was Thanksgiving was the first one, so I had a few months before that. I just immersed myself in growth, kind of like I was talking about earlier. And when your soul is full, it's a little bit hard, it's easier to handle the holidays, right? It's still not easy, but it's easier because your mind is starting to be transformed, right? You're starting to think differently. I was going to say that I'm learning that joy is not dependent on external things. It does not depend on, 40 people being at my house. Two people at my house is just as great as 40 people. Um, and for me, I can have deeper conversations. We just had small, celebrations the last few years, just me and my two kids, but we found it to be very joyful and peaceful. And so I'm learning to also let go of that imagined ideal, kind of like you guys were saying, the thought that it had to go a certain way. And I've just learned to ask them too, what do you guys like to do? And then I realized some of the things that I thought was special they hated anyway. So let's just not keep doing them. It only stressed me out trying to, get everybody excited about it. So I'm just learning to be more flexible and more just go with the flow. And also, celebrating Christmas doesn't have to be a specific day, a specific time, specific location. And Jesus wasn't born on December 25. So I mean, so with the blended families and everything, you might have to do, holidays a different day, but it's okay. It's still Christmas. Whatever day you think is Christmas is Christmas. And
Yes.
also, you could maybe even just think about little things like meeting friends at a Starbucks for peppermint mocha coffee and ornament exchange or something, even just one friend. I think that that's the small things are actually to me, becoming more meaningful because I'm used to like, big family gatherings, but I do remember those times where I never felt like I really had a complete conversation with any single person. So anyway,
Yeah, I love that. Basically being flexible to whatever and enjoying whoever's there in the moment. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so I have another question. Did any of you create any new traditions for yourself or your kids that helped you move forward? If you had your kids for the holiday, and I know for some of us we get them at different times. Some years we have them for Thanksgiving, some years we don't, if you still have younger kids. Did you find ways to make it feel special, even though it was probably a big change for the kids? And if you didn't have them on the years when you didn't have your kids, what did you do for yourself during those times?
Well, my kids are adults, so I don't have kids going back and forth between the ex and me. But one thing I really learned from you, Natalie, that has really helped is no one is responsible for my happiness except me.
Hmm.
I am the only one responsible. And so no one's responsible to make my birthday special except me.
Yes,
So
yes.
So a new tradition I created has to do with what Diana would applaud, and that is all in my mind as far as birthdays, holidays, that the only expectation I'm going to have is on myself. What will I do to make me feel special? For instance, on my birthday. So this last birthday, I because I learned all this so well from you, I thought, okay, what's something I really want to do for my birthday? I wasn't looking outside to other people to make it special. And so the only thing I could come up with was the science center because I haven't been to the one here and I love learning. So I went to the science center. I spent hours there. I took in both the IMAX movies, which were amazing. I just took my time going from each to each exhibit, reading everything I wanted to read, going back and rereading if I wanted to. There was no one, to have to be responsible for or take into account of, what did they want or not want.
Yeah.
And I had the best time. And, when you get at this science center, when you pay, they give you this little sticker that you put on yourself when you are going through to show that you paid, I guess. But it was the most special time, one of the most special birthdays that I took that little sticker and I stuck it in my car. And every day when I get in and I see that sticker, I still just have this special feeling in my heart. Like that, I know I keep using the word special, but that was such a special time that
Yeah.
I created just for myself. And then in the evening, some people gathered at my family and had dessert, which was really the icing on the cake to the day, pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I wanted to share about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm on the flip side where I do have kids, a whole
Uh-huh.
house full of them. And I guess I come from a divorced family myself. So when I was 10, my parents got divorced. So I understood the going back and forth and understanding that I didn't want to create more busyness and more chaos for the kids. And so, I mean, some other people have already touched on the idea of just letting some things go. Not everything that we think is important and needs to be there needs to be there. And so one of the things, I left that Diana had mentioned it, we started coloring, like just quiet. We print out like ornaments or at Easter eggs or bunnies. We turn on music and we just sit and
Oh,
we color.
I love that.
And I have a little, in my dining room, I have just little twine string with little clothespins that we always have their art on. And so I'll take down their regular art and we'll put up the seasonal coloring instead. And because for me, with the 5 kids and the newly divorced, and I live a long way from my family, like a lot of some of those holiday traditions just stress me out. Like the idea of having to hard boil dozens of eggs and dye them and just the idea of it or making cookies or I'm just like I just don't have the capacity to do it at this time. But can we all sit around the table with a bucket of crayons or markers and turn on some music? Yes. And so, far more simple traditions that don't require me to completely drain my mental and physical and emotional energy. Because I feel like it's far more important to keep your ability to love and to be present than it is to keep a tradition that just causes anxiety
Yes.
and
Oh
tension.
my gosh, that is gold. That is gold, Michelle. I'm so glad you shared that. Diana?
Yeah, it's just very similar, so I'll keep it short, but I kept the traditions I wanted to keep, and I dropped the traditions that I didn't want to keep. My favorite parts stayed, the ones that weren't too time consuming. I also hated egg coloring, and that does
Yeah.
not happen anymore. And I hated the egg hunt in the backyard. That does not happen anymore. It might at another house, but not mine. And I also approach all the holiday stuff with my kids. And yeah, mine are older. The three boys were just like the youngest of the three boys was a new adult when I got divorced. But they're a little older now and a high school daughter. But still, even as they're adults, like I just don't want pressure. I don't want to be the one that puts pressure on them. Natalie, you even helped me with this ones years ago when I was in the Flying Free Forum when I was talking about they're always so concerned with their dad. What does dad need on this holiday? What does dad need on this? What does dad need? And you're like, do you want to be the one that they're always concerned about having to take care of? Or do you want to be the one that's okay? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I want to be the one that's okay. And
The
so,
adult.
yeah, they
Prove
don't
me
have
the
to worry
adult.
about me.
Yeah.
If dad keeps, like I said before, kept him 3 hours late on Christmas by being late with stuff, they're like, okay, mom's going to be okay. And you
Yes.
better believe when they walked in the door, I wanted to be the one that was okay. And I was like, Merry Christmas. It's so good to see you. Hugs and kisses. What do you guys need? Do you need a snack before we do presents? And I just be present with them. And I put no pressure on them. And I'm just there to love them and support them. And this goes beyond the holidays now. This is just in life. The holidays are a reflection of how I show up for them in life. And yeah, they'll take care of me one day, but I hope that's not for another 30 or 40 years. Right now, I want to let them be free. And I want to be free.
Absolutely beautiful. Okay, what about other people? People like extended family or friends or even church groups that maybe didn't understand or support your divorce. Were you ever thrown into any groups like that or thrown into situations, I should say, where you had to see people like that during the holidays? Um, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, for me, I think I actually got a little bit of a blessing in that my divorce initially happened kind of during COVID. And so there was a lot more, everyone was isolated. And I didn't have to take some of those questions when things were really raw and hard. There was some time before I had to get in. And I will fully admit that I am still a little bit edgy sometimes, especially with church people. Um, and I don't feel like I owe anybody an explanation.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, I come from a small town and small community. Not very many people reached out to help or to ask if I was okay. And so I don't feel like very many people deserve an explanation of anything or details of my life. And so I keep things pretty quiet and pretty simple, and I don't give a lot of details about what's going on with me or my kids to people who haven't earned that space in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good for you. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. I think we talked about before we got on this episode, we talked about this question actually. And most,
Yes, I remember that because we were
yeah,
like, who's got answers for this question? We're all kind of like, I don't know. And this is what I said. I was like, well, I only surround myself with people who support me now, which
exactly.
which does
Exactly.
sound like it could be a little delusional, but it's not because it's not like, oh, I only want people around who agree with me. That's not what I'm talking about. The people in my life, we have a lot of differing opinions about all sorts of things. But the one thing that we always do is encourage and support each other. We bring compassion, we bring love, we bring grace. Those are the people around me. And at church, if I go to church, I don't always go, but I end up there for events and stuff. The people I'm still friends with there, all supportive. I haven't come across people who haven't been, but if I did, they wouldn't be a part of my life anymore either. I just don't have capacity, time, interest
Yeah.
for
Yep.
people who are going to be poking at me in any way and trying to, kick my feet out from under me. They just don't have a place. So my holidays and all the understanding of people around me has been great.
Yeah. And I think it's important when it comes to this question to give everyone needs to give themselves permission to just not be around people that are going to bring you down or create emotional havoc, wreak emotional havoc in your lives because they are going to judge you or criticize you, or even sometimes there's some people who won't say things out loud, but you can just tell the energy that's emanating from them is very judgmental. And it's just hard. We don't need that in our lives right now, right? We just don't. Okay, so let's move on then and talk about the grief and the loneliness, because I hear that a lot in our forum. People are lonely, especially lonely during the holidays or during, yeah, and sometimes it can just be because your kids are at their dad's house, but sometimes it can be because you're an empty nester, and maybe this is like so predominant where the adult kids are mad that you're going to divorce dad. They maybe saw that there was a lot of problems in the marriage, but you don't divorce, so they grew up in the home and then expected that you would just keep going, and then you end up getting divorced, and now they're kind of judging you for your divorce, and then they're like, well, we're not going to come to your house for the holidays. It could be because of that, or it could just be because you're with your two kids. Like Michele was saying, I'm with my two kids. It's possible that could make you feel lonely too. So what helped you get through those times of loneliness without spiraling out?
Well, for me, it was more grief than loneliness. My kids are adults also. So there was not like, me being without them or switching and all of that. But grief over, this is not the way I thought it was supposed to be, maybe, or
Mm.
those kind of things. That happened with the first few holidays, like this isn't how it's supposed to be. And I felt that, like what you were saying before, Diana, we don't want to put extra pressure on our kids. Well, we didn't intend that, but now because we're divorced, they're having to do two different things, two different sets. So, just feeling all of that and feeling the grief, the way that I would deal with that when it would be hard for them, um, I being outside always helps me. That just is a go-to of mine, just to be outside, like Grace said too, and not just walking and being in my head, but being present to what I'm feeling, which is another way that I have. I don't know, my healing journey, really a big part of that has been getting in touch with my body, and we've all talked about that here. Um, so breathing through the feelings that I'm having and seeing where I'm feeling it in my body. I just wasn't doing that before.
Yeah.
But I do that now, and it really helps. And another thing that really helps me is breath prayer. I don't know if y'all have ever, heard of that, but it's just really short prayers. One of my favorite is to take your favorite name for Jesus or God, and then when you're breathing in, you say that, in your mind or whatever. Like it would be Good Shepherd, and I'm breathing in Good Shepherd, and then when I breathe out, it's you are here with me. Those kind of things, just whatever, anything that you can do to feel that. Uh, what is it? What's the timeline of a feeling, a strong emotion that you have, Natalie? You've said that before. Like it
It can be, it's around
dissipates.
10 minutes, I feel like. It could be
Exactly. It's
less than
not
that or
long.
more, but yeah.
Yes. And so, that helps to get through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the feeling goes away. It's just that the intense part of it, where it
Intense
washes over you and
feeling.
you feel like you're going
Yeah.
to drown in it. You don't drown it's like a wave. It hits you, but then I tell people to
Exactly.
time themselves, time it so you can start being aware so that next time it hits you, you know, in your head, you have practice going, okay, ugh, this is horrible. I can breathe through it. I know that in about 10 or 15 minutes, I will be feeling better. And actually that will help you get through it faster because your system,
Exactly.
once it realizes there is an end to this, it can actually relax and cause the end to come a little bit sooner. It's kind of
Yeah.
like going into labor, you know, how they tell you to not fight your contractions, but just let the way breathe through the contractions. I
Oh my
remember that.
gosh, it's like contractions. If
Yeah.
you Google the 90-second rule, there are studies that show emotions often cycle through in 90 seconds. How long do birthing contractions last? What? I've been talking about the 90-second rule for a long time. I never realized, because you can get through a contraction, they're 1 to 2 minutes. And same with
Yeah.
feeling a
I
rush
didn't
of
feel like I
emotion.
could, but okay.
So,
Well,
so for
you
those who
know,
think that 10 to 15 minutes sounds like a long time,
Yeah.
some studies show 90 seconds. So you could be one
Thank
of
you.
those.
Thank you for saying that. I was
yeah.
thinking to
Well,
myself, some
and
people might
the
be going, that's too long. Oh, I'm sorry. Who's talking?
no, it's okay. What's helpful is when I'm feeling that intensity of grief, a lot of times I will feel it in my gut, like it just is.
Yeah.
It's
It
just
hurts.
almost like I feel sick to my stomach, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, knowing I've been telling myself this recently, this is not going to last. It's going to go away very shortly. And it probably is like 90 seconds, to be honest.
Yeah.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
Okay, I've noticed too that sometimes the grief and the loneliness is triggered when I'm comparing myself to someone. So recently I was sitting at a table with three of my female cousins, and they were talking about, like, what are you going to do this summer? And they were all talking about their husbands, which made everything look like they have these really healthy, fun marriages. Then they're talking about their adult kids, and they're all in touch. All their adult kids are in touch with them. They're in touch with their adult kids. They're all gathering together to go on these vacations this summer. And I was sitting there just wanting to bawl. Like, I was really sincerely happy for them. Talk about feeling two emotions at the same time.
Uh,
I was so happy for them. But at the same time, they were describing my dream that was now in ashes behind me,
yep.
in a heap behind me. And here I was living this life and in this world that I never dreamed I would be or never wanted.
Yeah.
And I just kept wanting to, like, well up, well up, well up. And so I noticed, though, that one thing that really helped me is realizing my story isn't over yet.
Yes.
It's not what I thought it would be. I'm in a place where I never wanted to be, but my story is not over. And the path that I'm on right now is unique to anyone else, those living what my dream was, and those not living what my dream was. But my path is unique, unlike anyone else on the face of the earth. And God is with me on this path. And that seems to restore a sense of purpose and even excitement to me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to share that. You talked about emotional landmines. That was something I never anticipated, that when other people would be talking about their lives, that would trigger grief or loneliness in me. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I literally just had that same experience this morning. I happened to be going on Instagram, and I'm very rarely on there, but I went on there and I saw someone from my childhood who was married to someone. I knew both of them from childhood. And then I was just fascinated by their life. And I went in and I was thinking the exact same thing. They have the beautiful life that I always wanted. Like, their kids are all, they're all emotionally healthy, and they don't have, they're probably not in therapy, and they go skiing all the time and go on travel trips. And like, why didn't I get that life? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I also want to bring up what Marie said at the beginning. I think you said that you had the thought sometimes this isn't how it's supposed to be, which is the same
Yes.
idea. This isn't how it's supposed to be, but that's a lie, because where you're at in your life is exactly how it was always supposed to turn out. It was. And when I have that thought, like I did this morning, is this how it's supposed to be? I don't think it was. I thought to myself, no, my life is exactly how it's supposed to be. and I'm so glad, Rochelle, you said the story's not over yet. We don't know. So if anyone's listening where you feel like you're in the middle of the mess and you don't see how it's ever going to, God says everything's going to work out for good to those who love God, to those. That doesn't mean that you're going to go on and have that dream that you always wanted. You're going to make a different dream. You're going to make a different story come true. And it could mean you could end up dying of cancer. One of us could end up dying of cancer in 2 years. Okay. And that could be how it was always meant to be. And we have no idea of what the ramifications of that for the rest of eternity and all the people that our lives touch. We have no idea what that's going to look like. We're in Flying Higher. We're reading right now, Finding Meaning, the 6th Stage of Grief by David Kessler. And he's taught, and I love this book. But so if anyone's listening who is going through a grieving process, and it doesn't have to even necessarily be divorce, it could be your health could be failing. It could be a child who died recently, or a child who is mentally ill, or it could be anything. Okay. But you're experiencing tremendous grief right now. I highly recommend that book. It's like the best book I've read so far that touches on what grief is and how to get through it, really. All right, we're going to move on from that topic though now. And we're going to, what I want to know is, what would you say to a woman who's dreading an upcoming birthday or holiday because it feels like, a giant blinking neon sign that says failure? How, and maybe you could offer ideas of how you balanced giving yourself permission to feel the sadness. I think, Rochelle, it was you said, it's amazing how you can have these two different emotions at the same time. You can feel the sadness, but also still choose to create moments of joy. What would you say?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that you're not a failure. Divorce is not a sin. And if you don't know that, I would recommend you reading God is My Witness by Cindy Burrell. There's also other materials out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing I would say is lean into this season of singleness. Make them the best years of your life. I mean, this period of your life could be really brief. Like if you are, seeking to find another husband, you might not be single very long. Or even if you are single till your passing, it's still not very many years if you think about eternity. So I would say lean into it. I mean, I don't even like being thought of as divorced. I think of myself as re-singled. It's more like, yay, I get another chance. I feel like I can do whatever God tells me to do. I don't have to ask anybody for permission. And really, that is how God designed it. He wants to talk to us directly. He wants to direct our lives directly, And it's like Paul said, yeah, I wish all of you could be unmarried like me, because if you're unmarried, you care for the things of the Lord. All you focus on is pleasing the Lord. And I will say, just park there, And the last thing I would say is, I, like all of you, I have grieved, the loss of a dream, and for me, a big part of the grief is the grief of the pain that I see in my kids, or the loss of their dreams too. And then one day it's like God just snapped me out of there. He's like, Grace, it's okay to grieve, but don't be so focused on that you miss what is right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And that is, like right now, my son still lives with me, and I also have my daughter. Sometimes if we dwell on the pain, the whys, and while we're with them, we're thinking, it should be a different way, then we are not present with them at that moment while they're in front of us. This is your opportunity. God was telling me, this is your opportunity to break the multi-generational cycles of dysfunction. This is your opportunity to show them, to demonstrate what a healthy family relationship is like, what it is like to keep growing even though you're older, being able to admit your mistakes or how your thinking is changing. That's a very powerful example.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on that too, everything that Grace said, but also, to put in some of those practical things, like you said, to stay off of Instagram and social media and Facebook if you feel like this is a vulnerable time and I'm going to be easily triggered. And I've had to go through stages of that where I know I've had years where I don't want to see people's summer vacations because I'm not at a place where I can take summer vacations. And sometimes I'm feeling really strong and resilient and I can see it and I can be okay with it. And sometimes I just have to be aware, like, I should probably not go on and see what people did for Memorial Day or do what they did for, you know, I think this weekend I feel perfectly fine, but I have had previous summers where that has been hard to see people's pictures of gathering with family and friends and having the barbecues, and I don't have that, and it's been hard. And it's okay to kind of cocoon yourself if you need to and just do what you need. You'll get there someday where you can see people's pictures or you can hear a friend's story and you can feel both emotions at once. I don't think we'll ever get to the place where we just feel absolute 100% joy for everybody and there isn't any bit of grief or sadness about the things that we thought we might have had. Like, we are human and we are going to feel that. But it's also okay if you don't feel that you have the capacity at that time, in your first year or so to cocoon yourself. I would just say don't isolate yourself. Please still find a friend or a family member, or I mean, I still have a counselor. I'm only going once a month, but I was going once a week. And so it's okay to cocoon and get that extra support and help during those first couple of years where it seems like every time you turn around, there's another event, another holiday, another something that's triggering all of that pain and sadness of what you're having to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that grief means that you're a failure at all. Sometimes we're like, oh, this is so painful, so I must have screwed it. I must have screwed it up. I must have failed. I failed the family. I failed God, whatever. And so all those emotions, they're valid, but let's not let them send us down. Talk about spiraling down into shame, like I'm not worthy. I screwed up. There's something fundamentally wrong with me. And feel the sadness, feel the grief, but also have truth. And when it comes to like, okay, now you're trying to go through the holidays and you're not married versus you went through them before, how does that mean you failed? Could you have single-handedly made your marriage healthy? Could you have single-handedly changed the way your ex-spouse did things? No, those are lies. So you're making up a story that you're a failure. The truth is you didn't fail. And the truth is you gave it everything you could. Natalie, you did a podcast episode on, if people listening haven't listened to Flying Free, there's so much wisdom over there too, but your Flying Free podcast, May 2025, you did an episode on resistance. And the truth is you were resisting difficult things in your marriage in difficult circumstances. You did great. It was you were just in a bad situation. It's not that you're a failure. So now what? Own that truth. I didn't fail anything. I grew, I matured, I evolved, I got wisdom, and now I'm in a different situation and I have grief. That's okay. I'll feel the grief, but I'm going to open myself up to opportunity. Now there's the possibility of new traditions. This last Mother's Day, I'm like, sorry, kids, I'm traveling. Bye. There's new things you can do. You can connect with other women. This last Christmas was the first Christmas. Talk about, earlier in the conversation, the grief and loneliness. It was the first Christmas I didn't spend with my kids at all. And I just had to feel the pain. But then I get to ask myself, what am I going to do? And Natalie, you had an online gathering for women in the Flying Free, Flying Higher space, or I think it was Flying Higher. And I didn't get to join live, but I listened to that on Christmas Day. I'm like, I'm with these women, not with their kids. I'm feeling that community. And what else do I want to do? And I went to a movie. I went to see Wicked, and I had a friend of mine named Natalie go at the same time as me in a different state. So we went together, but not. It was great. And I'm like, what can I create? I didn't fail at anything. This isn't a problem with me. This is a new place. There's pain getting here. There's a little pain here, but I have open space. What can I create? So there's a lot in that. Again, so much wisdom from all of these women. I'm floored by the things that you share and the ideas you have. So that's just like to bolster all of the things you've already said.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up. And now that I think most of you guys are a lot further out from your divorce, obviously, than the first year. I'm almost 8 years out of my first divorce, but still only about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months out of from my second divorce. But obviously, I've gone through this before, so I have a little practice. But so you know what? Once you get a lot of divorces under your belt, you get really you get really good at it. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. Okay. But anyways, now that you're further along, how do holidays and birthdays feel different to you? Or what has changed in how you approach these kinds of things?
Well, I liked what Diana said is I see it as opportunities now to
Yeah.
create something. I love that word create. We are creating or crafting our lives now, and our story is not over. And I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm I'm amazed that I get to be here, be in this life. Now there are days that I'm like not feeling that, but a lot of days I am just I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that I get to do this. So, holidays are opportunities. They're opportunities to think and ask that question, Diana. What do I need? What do I want? So they're just opportunities to craft something
Yep.
new.
Beautiful.
I think the biggest change I've made in how I approach holidays, because this was so big for me, is deciding where my holiday happiness comes from. And I think we've all touched on parts of this, and I talked about it about my birthday, but I used to approach holidays with coming up with these plans and cooking these meals. And with everything I did, I anticipated the positive response that I was going to get from everyone, or buying gifts and anticipating how happy they were going to be when they opened it. And that determined whether my holiday went well or not. Because if their response was negative, then I sunk into disappointment. So I'm sure we can all relate.
Yeah.
But deciding that, like you've taught us, Natalie, that we are the creators of our own happiness. And if we're looking to our kids to make us happy, that's not going to yield good things for them or for us. So going into the holidays now, even if I am going to be with my kids and making plans, I hold any kind of response very loosely. I don't even think about like, oh, I'm going to get this type of response or not. And then if I do get a response, great, a positive response. If I don't get a positive response, it's okay because I've learned to trust myself with the decisions that I've made of how the holiday can be spent. And so being content, there's something about being content and satisfied with who we're becoming and trusting the decisions we've made, that at the end of the day, at the end of the holiday, even if things didn't go perfectly, if the plans didn't get executed just right, if people were disappointed or critical or negative, I can still go to bed feeling content because of who I've become in the midst of all of that happening. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, for me, kind of like you guys were saying, I'm less focused on the external and more just focused on the internal. I'm learning that it's not dependent on traditions or how something is done, or how it would even look to other people. Um, kind of like you guys were saying about social media. I mean, we tend to make stories about the pictures that we see, right? We see them smiling and we think, oh, they're having this perfect family gathering or whatever, but it could just be that split second that they smiled. I mean, like right before that, you don't know what happened, or right afterwards. One time a friend was sharing with me that they had this a perfect Christmas picture, but what we don't see is that right after that, one of their kids got a splinter in their eye and they had to go to the emergency room. So anyway, we make up stories. I mean, yeah, they have a beautiful picture, but that doesn't mean they have a perfect family, right? So anyway, so I'm focusing more on also the fact that less is best, right? I mean, sometimes I get so busy focused on the other things that I'm actually not so fun to be with. So also secondly, I'm learning to be more present be present to myself and to others. I do what I enjoy, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to miss the person in front of me. I think about Maya Angelou's quote, I've learned that people will forget what you said or what you did, but they will not forget how you made them feel. So you could just be with one person or two people, but make the most of it. Let them be heard and seen. They're going to remember that more than what exactly you did, for this Christmas meal.
Yes. Amen. All right. For those of you who are listening, these women are all members of Flying Free or Flying Higher. And they have, I mean, I don't know if you can tell that, but their mindset is they're not perfect, but they have amazing mindsets. And the ways that they think about their lives has completely changed from, I don't know, some of you are further along than others, or further years out than others are from ground zero, I guess, when the big explosion went off in your lives. But if any of you who are listening want to work together with us and be part of our community, we would love to have you. Just go to joinflyinghigher.com to learn more and sign up. And so for those of you who are here participating in this panel, thank you so much for giving us your time. And for those of you who are listening to this new Divorced Christian Woman podcast, thank you so much for also listening and joining us in this conversation. Until next time, fly higher.